day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's tourism lesson. My name is Evans Maponya. This lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibono Discovery Center. You can access today's lesson whenever you want to ask questions on WhatsApp. Please text to 079 578 2908. I'm going to repeat the number for WhatsApp questions. It's 079 578 2908. Right, grade 12 learners. Our topic for today, it's on foreign exchange. In short, you would call it Forex. This section, it's assessed in section B of the exam paper, and it's question 3. You will further be assessed on this topic in control tests, skills assessment task, the PET, the prelim examination, and the final examination. What do you need to know as a grade 12 learner? You should be able, by the end of the lesson, to have a better understanding of the following. The term gross domestic product, its acronym is GDP, and its benefit to South African economy. Secondly, you need to know and understand the multiplier effect and its link to the GDP. You also need to understand the concept of a strong and weak rand. You also have to know the relative strength and relative weakness of a currency at a specific time. You also need to interpret a currency rate sheet. Moving forward, you also need to know how to convert the major currencies to South African rand and to convert South African rand into selected currencies to understand the buying power of different currencies. Use only exchange rates expressed as one unit of foreign currency equals to the value in rand. For example, 1 USD, United States of American dollar, as one unit, as expressed here, is equals to 17 rand and 60 cents. It's its equivalent in rands. You are allowed during any formal assessment to use calculators during calculations, and you are further reminded to round off the final answer to 2 decimal fractions. For example, 34 rand 0.56. After the point, only 2 digits are acceptable. You also need to be in a position to differentiate between bank selling rate, which is BSR, and bank buying rate, which is BBR. You also need to know by the end of this lesson the effect of exchange rates on international tourism, affecting both inbound, that is your incoming tourist, and as well as outbound tourists, the outgoing tourists, tourists leaving the country, and how this influence travel patterns of South Africans traveling to developing countries, as well as to the developed countries of the world. Another concept that you need to understand is the fluctuations in exchange rates, the decrease and the increase in terms of value of a particular currency. That is referred to as fluctuation. Sometimes a currency will be up and sometimes it will be down, depending on the variables in the economic landscape. So the up and down syndrome is known as fluctuation. So I've summarized in this slide what you need to know as a grade 12. So all the concepts that I've alluded to revolves around foreign exchange. And they are as listed in this spider web diagram: the multiplier effect and the link to the GDP, the gross domestic product and its benefit to South African economy, fluctuation in exchange rates, the effect of exchange rates on international tourism, differentiating between bank selling rate and bank buying rate, using currency conversions to understand the buying power of a currency, interpreting a currency rate sheet, relative strength and weakness of a currency at a specific time, and the concept of a weak and strong rand. So this diagram summarizes what you need to know as a grade 12, and it will come handy for you to use as a tool to further study the portion on foreign exchange. Here are your concepts. So they will be indicated in each slide from now henceforth. The first concept that you need to understand, and that takes you to grade 11. This chapter, remember, it comes from grade 11 and it's consolidated. It builds up into grade 12 content. So currency, it's a concept that refers to money in the form of paper or coins used as a medium of exchange for goods and services. In ordinary language, we refer to currency as money. And what do we use this money? Whether in the form of a paper or coin, we use it to exchange for goods and services. And in ordinary language, we would say we use money to buy or to purchase goods and services. So on the picture here, on this slide, you can see commodities that money can be used for in exchange. So you have meat here, you have bread, and these are a different sample of money in the form of coins and papers. So we would use this money to buy the goods and or services, services like flight tickets, services that are provided by travel agencies. They charge you a fee for providing that service. So we use currency or money to buy such goods and services. Another concept that you need to understand is local currency. Local currency refers to the currency of a particular country where a transaction is being carried out or where a transaction is being processed. So in the context of South Africa, we will use rands as our local currency. A foreign currency, as opposed to local currency, is a currency or currencies not belonging to your own country. So in our case, we are using rands, but as soon as you get hold of a Zimbabwean dollar, be in the know that you are now holding a foreign currency. So examples given here is that of the US dollar, as well as the euro used in most European countries. They are indicated on this map. This is a map of Europe. Countries such as Italy, countries such as Germany would use the euro, with the exception of England, which currently use, and for the past many years, has been using a pound or a sterling, British pound or a British sterling. As we move further with our concepts, another important concept underlying this topic is foreign exchange. It refers to the practice of converting one currency into another currency. An example here, a 200 note is being converted, is being translated into a US dollar, as seen on the picture. So that conversion, that transaction of using our rand to buy another currency, a European, an American dollar in this instance, is referred to as foreign exchange. We are exchanging different currencies. We are exchanging different monies. Another concept is that of rate of exchange. In short, it's called the ROE, or ROE. It refers to the value of one's country currency in relation to another. The rate of exchange explains the value, how much you will get when you exchange your own currency or when you use your own currency to buy a currency of another country. When you use your own money that is used in your own country to buy foreign currency or money from other countries other than your own country. So the rate of exchange here, as you can see from this slide, recorded on the 16th of April at 12 minutes past 12, South African rand was, or you'll need 18 rand 59 cent to purchase or to buy an American dollar. So the situation with euro is different. If you have €1, want to exchange it into South African rand, it will be equivalent to 20 Rand 24. So as with the dollar, the rate of exchange, $1 will buy 18 and 59 rands when we convert it to the South African. So this is the rate of exchange. It tells you how much you will buy a foreign currency or how much you will get in exchange of foreign currency. So it is more into the value of what you are buying. A fluctuation. Fluctuation, I have alluded to the fact that it denotes up and down. So simply it refers to changes in the currency value in relation to another currency. So currencies or money across the world is not stable. It's not stable. It goes up and down. So an example given here, on the 16th of April, the exchange rate for the euro, for €1 is 20 Rand and 15 cents. And in the previous slide, if we refer back, it was just below the 20 Rand 15 cents. Facilities or places where foreign currencies can be exchanged. Places where you can buy foreign currencies, or if you are to leave your country to another countries, you must visit all these places listed here to exchange your currency to the currency of a country that you will be visiting. The first facility where you can change your currency into another country's currency are all commercial banks. So you can make use of commercial banks to convert your local currency into foreign. You can also exchange your currency through the use of foreign exchange dealers. So there are people whose duty is only to facilitate the exchange of your country's banknotes into the country, the notes of a country that you are visiting. You can also visit the foreign exchange bureaus to perform this kind of transaction, this exchange of money into local currency, into foreign currency. You can also make use of the travel agents. You can use some of the hotels which have this facility, and you can also make this kind of transaction on cruise ships. Gross domestic product, or the GDP as it's well known. The GDP is the total value of all goods and services produced in a country over a period of 1 year. The value of all goods or all products and services that are produced in a country in a period of 1 year, that defines our GDP, or the gross domestic product. If the GDP is rising, it indicates a strong economy or a good economy. And the nation, in that respect, is set to be moving forward. If the GDP is down, the economy is in trouble. In other language, they say it is in a juncture state, and the nation is losing its ground. So it is a healthy thing to maintain an ever-rising GDP, because that leads to development, which eventually leads to civilization. So we must try hard at all times to maintain a very strong GDP. The gross domestic product, as illustrated here, we said the GDP is the total value of goods. This is an industrial site. They are manufacturing goods. And here are examples of services. So the GDP is the total value of goods produced in all industrial processes, and services, the value of goods and services that are produced in a country. Here is a map of South Africa on this illustration, and this has to be produced over a certain period of time. And to clearly define the GDP, it's over a period of 1 year, as the slide indicates. Gross domestic product, here the slide indicates how it is divided according to contribution from different sectors of our economy. As you can see, high on the list, it is this one at 20. So it has a stake of 20% of the gross domestic product, and it is finance, real estate, and business services. So the whole big part, which occupies 20% on the graph, relates to finance, real estate, business, and services. It is followed by the greenish one, which is at 16.5, which represents manufacturing. Manufacturing contributes 16.5 of the GDP. And as you may see with the rest, there is construction at 10.5. There is also general government services at 12.8. And these are coded on the legend. So the legend on the side clearly explain what each sector represent or contribute to the GDP of the country. Benefits of the GDP growth to South African economy. How the GDP growth benefits our economy as South Africans. Firstly, is that it leads to income generation. So when the GDP grows, we generate a lot of income. So in further explaining this, tourists visiting South Africa spend their money on products and services in our country. And in return, they pay for those goods and services. And this make a significant contribution to the GDP of South Africa, to the growth of the GDP of the South Africa. Another benefit associated with the GDP growth is employment, or GDP growth, you can simply say, creates job opportunities. Employment in underdeveloped areas and other areas where tourists are visiting is being created if there is an influx number of tourists to that underdeveloped area. So it creates job opportunities for local people. Infrastructure improvement is one of the benefits that is derived from GDP growth, or a strong GDP. So with infrastructure, you would say tourism stimulates the development of infrastructure, improving the living conditions of local. So it leads to good roads, development or building of schools, hospitals, and all other development structures that you can think of. So the growth in the GDP does benefits towards the development of infrastructure. Skills development is one of the aspects associated with strong GDP. Education and training programs of local people help them to improve and manage resources. And you can sum up the whole idea by saying it helps in the upskilling of local people. The multiplier effect. The multiplier effect here, as indicated on this flowchart diagram, it shows us how money filters down to different sectors of the economy. Money that has been derived from tourists goes down into other important areas of the economy of South Africa. So if I have to explain this diagram, here is an indication that tourists will pay for transport, that is flights, all the cruise ship, public transport that they will be using during their trips. So this money that they have paid for transport, it is further used to sustain other aspects of the economy, other areas of the economy, in the travel agencies, in the restaurants, people who work in this transport industry get salaries and wages, and they further spend it to other areas in the economy. As you can see here, people get employed, and out of this tourist expenditure, they get wages, salaries, profits, and they further spend the money that they have received in the form of salaries and wages, as well as profit if one operates a business in this sector. So this money is further used for development of infrastructure, for these employees to buy food and groceries and other home utensils. They pay for their children's school fees. They also pay for medical bills, and so on and so on. So money that was spent by tourists will filter into other areas of the economy. And that describes multiplier effect. Here is also a further explanation of the multiplier effect. Tourists spend money when traveling. The money goes into local economy. This money is then spent by local business to purchase goods and pay employees. This re-spending of the money expands the local economy, creating the multiplier effect. I hope by now you'll be able to express yourself positively, given a question where you have to explain multiplier effect. The multiplier effect and how it links to the GDP. Here is an explanation below. It says the value of expenditure is multiplied and has a positive economic effect. So when one spends on a commodity or a good or a service, that money is further spent by the recipient or the receiver of that money to buy or to satisfy his or her needs. Money spent in a particular area helps to create jobs. The jobs in turn create demand for other products and services in the local economy. I have explained or given an example of such products and services. So if one is employed in a particular sector, after receiving a salary, he will use the money that he has earned to further cover for his or her needs, as well as the needs for their own family. Money, therefore, filters through to all levels of the economy. So in this regard, every participant, everyone or every stakeholder in the economy benefits out of this whole process, which it's initiated by the tourist by spending money on products and services, and it gets to benefit everyone who participate in the economy. The buying power of the rand. It refers to the amount of foreign currency you can buy with your own rand. And if the rand can buy a lot of other currencies, we say the rand is strong in relation to other currencies. If the rand can only buy little of a particular currency, the rand is said to be weak in relation to that currency. The concept of a strong and a weak rand. As per the rate of exchange determines the strength of a country's currency. The strength of the South African rand, which takes, or which is known internationally as the ZAR, compared to other currencies, for example, $1 is equals to 9 rand and 4 cents. In comparison, the South African rand, which is ZAR, if you have to use the code, to the US dollar, the ZAR or the South African rand is weak. Just bear in mind that the code for the South African rand is ZAR. For the purpose of foreign exchange, we are not using the R as you usually do. So ZAR is the international code for the South African rand. So in this given example, the South African rand, the ZAR, is weak compared to the US dollar. The strong rand. The foreign tourists will receive less rand for their currency, and that indicates that the rand is strong. Foreign tourists will have less money to spend if we happen to have a strong rand. Long-haul destination, an expensive option. So people from far or further afield, from far countries, will see South Africa as an expensive destination if we have a strong rand. South Africa will be perceived as an expensive destination. So if the rand is strong, then everything in the country will be expensive for foreign tourists because they will get less on their exchange. Inbound tourists will visit for a shorter period of time, or they will decide not to visit at all. If South Africa offers an expensive experience, offer an expensive service, offer the goods that are high in terms of price, then people will not stay long in the country. They will stay for a shorter period of time. Tourism will contribute less to the South Africa's GDP, and the economy will decline. It can lead to also job losses. If we are not receiving a high number of tourists, then people serving in those industries may lose their job. People working in accommodation, in hotels, people working in the transport sector may lose their job if we receive fewer number of tourists. So these are some of the effects of maintaining or having a strong rand in the country. The situation is opposite when we have the weak rand. So if the rand is weak, it will attract more inbound international tourists to South Africa. Foreign tourists, upon exchanging their currency, will receive more rand for their currency. Foreign tourists will have more money to spend, that is greater spending power in the local economy during their visit. So they will find everything cheaper because on exchange, they have received so many rands. A greater demand for tourism products and services is created as the international tourists will spend more in South Africa. So if the exchange rate is favorable for foreign tourists, they will spend more in the country because they will find everything cheaper for them. Foreign tourists will get more value for their money and will therefore spend more. So if you find a cheaper item today, you'll make it a point that you buy as many as you can afford because they are sold at a very reasonable price. As we further assess on the weak rand, it leads to an increased demand for tourism products, and that will lead to a growth in the GDP and will yield a positive impact on the economy. More job opportunities will be created. So if tourists spend a lot into this country, into the product and the services that they are getting in South Africa, then there will be a demand for more people to render services or to further start or initiate businesses that are related to tourism. Tourists will be able to reduce their original budget, making their trip less expensive. So it will be easier for them to budget for such a trip. So if you were to budget, say maybe 30,000, if the rent is cheaper, if the rent is viable, if it's weaker, then you may decide otherwise. Instead of budgeting 30,000, you may look forward to budgeting something like half the amount, which is 15,000. So it is to the advantage of the tourist. Tourists might extend their length of stay. If things are cheaper around, they will expand on the period of stay. Instead of visiting for just 5 days, they may extend it to 10 or 12 days, depending on their budget, because South Africa is seen as a cheaper destination. That is only when the rent is cheaper, it's weak. Relative strength and weakness of currency at specific times. This we have explained when we talked about the concept of fluctuation. So this is relative. You cannot tell exactly as to the value of the rand because it changes over a period of time. Hence, we are using a relative strength and weakness of a currency. So it is relative. It is not stable. It is not staying at the same value over time. So it changes with the variable that we find in to be affecting our economy. So the strength and the weakness of a currency at specific times can be influenced by the following factors. One, political unrest or instability, acts of terrorism, and high crime rate. So all these aspects that I've indicated have a potential to chase away tourists from visiting. Political unrest, people will be scared to visit a country where there is unrest. A high rate of crime, places where the crime rate is high will not attract potential tourists because they are scared to be mugged, to be robbed of their belongings. So the high crime rate will chase away tourists that would want to visit the country. Acts of terrorism, so will also scare away tourists because you wouldn't want to visit places where you can die at any minute. So people would want to protect their own dear life other than risking visiting countries known for acts of terrorism. Instability, where the politics within the country is not stable. I'm sure you wouldn't want to visit places such as Israel at the moment. You won't want to visit places where there is uncertainty in respect of leadership in that country. So all these aspects chase away tourists that would want to visit at a specific time. And this has an impact on the strength and weakness of a currency. The natural disaster, such as drought, water crisis, also scare away tourists that may want to visit. An example here, at a particular period of time, there was shortage of water in Cape Town, and during the time which the tourism activity in that province was very minimal because there was no drinking water. Unforeseen events, diseases, economic recession, all these aspects will have an impact or a negative impact on the strength of a currency of a specific country and a specific country. Disease outbreak, you have a better experience and better knowledge of, because we existed during the time which we had COVID-19 in the 2020s and 2021, where it was high. So it scared or it affected international travel. People were locked down in their own country, and this can impact on the strength or weakness of a currency. So such disease outbreak would scare people from traveling across international borders for their dear life. Negative credit ratings or a junk status also affect the strength and weakness of a currency. So here we are referring to international debt, where countries cannot attain loan from international communities. So you are said to be in a junk status where your loans are over and beyond what you can produce as a country. Corruption in government also affect or has an influence to the strength and weakness of a country. In countries where government officials are corrupt, where government officials benefit or work for their own pockets and not saving the nation, has an effect on the strength and weakness of a discovery of a new or large amounts of mineral resources. Obviously, this will boost the income, and it will make the currency relatively strong. Hosting of successful global events such as Soccer World Cups, international conventions, and summit. If you have an ability as a country to host such events, then it makes the currency strong. So in our case, our rand will be stronger by mere effect of hosting international or global events. The interest rates also affect the strength and the weakness of a rand. The higher the interest rate will make life difficult for people in that country, and it will have an impact on the prices of commodities in that country. positive and negative image of a country in media reporting. So if a country is reported or is known for portraying a negative image, that country is unlikely to attract visitors. So if we have positive publicity in a country, then it will boost the economy because everyone will be interested in visiting the country, and that will generate income and making the currency strong. Negative publicity, like when we say South Africa is known for high rate of crime, has a negative impact on the strength of the currency, and it weakens it as it's publicized to be of a negative image internationally. One of the subtopics that we need to internalize is how to interpret a currency rate sheet. What is this currency rate sheet? It is a list of the rates of exchange, the ROE, at which foreign currencies are bought and sold. This rate will determine how much foreign currency you will receive or get when you exchange your money. Foreign currencies are displayed by a 3-letter code. The first 2 letters in that code refers to the name of the country, and the 3rd letter refers to the currency. So in our case, you have the ZAR. So the Z, substitute the S, because in the past, South Africa used to be colonized by Netherlands and later on became a colony of Britain. So during the time which was South Africa, or with the arrival of people from Netherlands, the Afrikaner people, in Dutch, South was referred as Zuid. So that has been kept over the years. So South Africa is Zuid-Afrika in Dutch language. So the Z has been derived since that colonial period. So the 2 letters of the code, that is ZA, refers to the country, and the 3rd letter and the last refers to the currency. Most currencies also have a symbol to indicate the currency. As seen on this table, the United States of America, the name of the currency would be the US dollars. The code is the USD, and the symbol is as indicated here. And other aspect that you'll find on the currency rate sheet is the exchange rate itself, and it is expressed into bank buying rate and bank selling rate. Here on the table, we have indicated that the bank buy and the bank sell. So the bank buying rate tells us that the bank will use the rate to buy foreign currency from clients. The bank selling rate expresses an idea that the bank will use a different rate other than they've used for buying to sell foreign currencies. So if we further go down the table, you'll realize that Britain or England will use the British pound or the sterling, and the code is GBP, and here is the symbol, and the bank buying rate and the bank selling rate respectively. The euro, it's used by a group of European countries. They have decided or they've agreed to use a common currency across the different countries in Europe. So here is the code, euro. Unlike that of other countries that we've alluded before, the euro now represents the continent, is the continent's code for the euro, which is the money used in different countries that are located in Europe, countries such as France, countries such as Italy, countries such as Germany, countries such as Netherlands are using the euro as a common currency. And here is the symbol, and here are the buying and selling rates in exchange of the South African. The Australian dollar is the AUD, the code, and the symbol is similar to that of the US dollar. So now the similarities is that they use the same symbol, but they use the different code. So for Australian dollar, it's AUD. For US dollar, it's USD. That is the code, but the symbol is the same. I'm sure by now you can give the similarities and be in a position to give the differences between a US dollar and the Australian dollar. The same applies with the Chinese yuan and the Japanese yen. They use the same symbol. These are the similarities, but the currency code is different. China uses CNY, whereas Japan uses JPY. But common here is the symbol. So from this slide, I just wanted you to note the differences or the different codes that are used for currencies, as well as different symbols that are attached to specific currency. Also the buying rate, which we said is the rate that the bank uses to buy foreign currencies, and the bank selling rate, which we said it is the rate that the bank will use to sell foreign currency. Rounding off to 2 decimal places, as you do the conversion, after the comma of a particular currency, you'll get so many numbers. Very many numbers are indicated after the comma. So financial-wise, we are advised to round off, or in any given tourism question paper, you will be expected to round off to 2 decimal places after the comma. If we can focus on the first one, is 3.1415926. So this is a very long figure and you can find it confusing. So if you exchange your money and they give you a rate of this kind, it may confuse you. So the best way to deal with this is to convert to 2 decimal places. And how do you go about doing that? So in the next one, they show you how you convert to 2 decimal places. So as you can see here is 3.14, and when you look at the third digit after the comma, it is less than 5. It is less than 5, then it means to the nearest 10, then it will remain at 4. So it will be 314, the final answer. But the scenario is different with the second one, where you have 12.9999. So if we were to convert this figure to 2 decimal places, the third one is above, the third digit is above 5, it's over 5, or 9 is bigger than 5, then this automatically changes this to 10. And if we move the 1 to the next one, it's another 10, which is 0, and it has to be moved across to here, and it results into 13.00. Just note these changes. So if it's above 5, then it increases the next digit on the left, and eventually it will affect the whole total. So that's how you go about rounding off to 2 decimal places. So in any given calculation, you'll be expected to give 2 digits after the comma, 00 as seen here. The bank selling rate and bank buying rate, as seen on our rate sheet table, the bank selling rate refers to the rate at which the foreign exchange dealers, for example, commercial banks, will sell foreign currency. And in opposite, it is the bank buying rate, the rate at which the foreign exchange dealers, an example here, commercial banks as well, will buy foreign currencies. Let's move on and further explain the bank selling rate and bank buying rate. The bank buying rate, or the bank buying rate, it's always lesser than the bank selling rate. The bank buying rate will always be lower than the bank selling rate. Here you come. You have just returned from France. You are in South Africa, you have visited France recently. On your return, you still have euros. And because euros are not used in South Africa to buy goods and services, then you want to exchange that to or with the bank. When you get to the bank will have to buy your foreign currencies, and they will have to determine a very cheaper price for themselves. So the bank buying rate, the bank will buy from you at a cheaper price. But after a few moments, you want to return to Europe again, and you get to the bank. You want to exchange now your rands into euros. The bank will sell you the euros at a higher rate than they bought them from you. So hence we say the bank buying rate is always lower than the bank selling rate. This is what will help you to identify which exchange rate you will use. We'll talk more about this when we do the actual calculation and see how this is applied. Convert measure currencies. The instruction says, use the exchange rate table below to answer the questions that follow. This is just an example of a question where we will apply all what we have discussed on the rate sheet table. So here is an example given here. We are going to use this table to convert the rand into British pounds. So this is the exchange rate. The name of the currency on the table is GBP. It is used in Britain, England, and the bank buying rate, represented by BBR here, is 18.2 cents. And the bank selling rate, represented by BSR, is at 18 Rand 0.10. Now, let us read the scenario. Upon their arrival in South Africa, Gareth and his mother exchanged 4,000 Great British pounds for South African rand. Calculate how much they receive in rand. Round off your answer to 2 decimals. So the instruction here is clear. So here is Gareth and his mother have just returned on an international trip, and in particular they were somewhere in England, and they bring back home 4,000 British pound. This is the currency that they have at hand, and for goods and services in South Africa, they may not use this money because they are in a different country. They have to use local currency. What is going to happen here is that because they have a foreign country, a foreign currency, the local banks will have to buy from them the foreign currency. Local banks, local dealers will have to buy from Gareth and his mother the foreign currency. And in so doing, they will use the bank buying rate. Because here, in this scenario, the bank is going to buy foreign currency. So in short, it says to us that the bank buys foreign currency and the bank sells foreign currency. The bank will never buy local currency. The bank will always buy from clients foreign currency. the bank will always sell foreign currency to clients. Clients will never in any way sell their foreign, will never in any way buy local currency using their foreign currency. So it says to us, the bank always determine the rate. And actually, this derives from the rate of exchange. And this is the way banks are making their money or profit. Convert measure currencies. As we move on with the calculation, decide if you must use or multiply or divide by the rate of exchange when doing the calculation. So for your conversion to work out easier, convert from South African rand to measure foreign currencies of the world, you always have to divide. So if you have to divide the rand, if you have to convert the rand into foreign countries like the euro, you always have to divide. And if you are to convert the major currencies of the world to the South African rand, you always have to multiply. This is a rule. Converting one rand into other currencies of the world, you always divide. And if you convert major currencies of the world to South African rand, you always multiply, irrespective of the value of such a foreign currency. So back to the question at hand. Upon their arrival in South Africa, Gareth and his mother exchanged 4,000 British pound for South African rand. So if we go back to the rule, if you convert the measure foreign currencies to South African rand, you always have to multiply as the symbol indicated here. So Gareth and his mother will have to multiply because they are changing their foreign currency into local currency, so they will have to use the multiplication symbol. They have to times what they have against the South African. As we further move on this calculation of converting measure currencies, it says establish the rate of exchange to be used in the calculation. Is it the bank selling rate or the bank buying rate? So in this regard, the rate that will be used, because the bank will be buying foreign currencies that were brought to South Africa by Gareth and his mother. So because the bank will be buying foreign currency from them, will use the bank buying rate, not the bank selling rate. So the bank here buys the 4,000 British pound from Gareth and his mother. And what you need to look at here is also the rate. Can you see this is the demonstration to you that the bank buying rate is always less as compared to the bank selling rate. The bank is prepared to purchase these foreign notes using the bank buying rate of 18 Rand and 2. But if they were to sell this foreign currency to Gareth and his mother, the rate changes. They move from bank buying rate, and now they will apply the bank selling rate, which is higher than the bank buying rate. So they buy at a cheaper price and they sell at an expensive rate. So we'll use the bank buying rate, and remember the mathematical symbol that we are using here is a multiplication. We are going to multiply the bank buying rate and the equal number of British pounds. the currency you have, multiply by the buying rate is equal to the currency that you will have after change. The statement simply explains that if you have 4,000 British pounds, as in the case of Gareth and his mother, they will use the bank buying rate, which is multiplied to give us the amount in rands, which is 72,080 rand 0.00. These two digits have been rounded off to 2 decimal places. So this completes the calculation where Gareth and his mother, returning from England, brought home 4,000 British pound, and the South African bank used the bank buying rate to multiply the foreign currency, and 4,000 will give them 72,000. And that completes this calculation. The next item for discussion will be the effect of exchange rates on international tourism. So this will be discussed under the following heading: outbound tourists, inbound tourists, and outbound and inbound respectively. So here are the effects. For an outbound tourist, South African outbound tourist will be more likely to travel to international destination. Outbound travel will be more affordable. Another scenario, for an inbound tourist, South Africa will be regarded as an expensive destination. International inbound tourists may consider travel to cheaper, more value for money destination. So when the rand is weak, South Africa outbound tourists will find it expensive to travel most international destinations. South Africans will choose destinations where they will receive greatest value for money. That is in an event where the South African rand is cheaper. This is the impact. So most South Africans will find outside world very expensive for them. So there will be less activity, there will be less travel for overseas destination because they will be expensive for South Africa. So for inbound tourists visiting the country, if the rand is weak, many international inbound travelers will visit South. So because it will be cheaper for them to travel to the country, they will get more notes in exchange of their currency. South Africa will be regarded as a value for money destination. So inbound tourists will get more value for their money. So this is the synopsis, the kind of situation that the weaker and the strong rand presents for both outbound and inbound tourists. And in respect of when the rand is strong and when the rand is weak. The fluctuations in exchange rate, this refers to changes in the value of currency in relation to another currency. Currencies fluctuate based on supply and demand. Supply and demand are linked to various factors. For example, the country's monetary policy, the rate of inflation, political and economic conditions in the country. So remember, we have discussed earlier the impact of these fluctuations, what causes the rise and the fall of the currency. We have given example of political instability, unrest, the disease outbreak, and many others. So that are responsible for the fluctuation in exchange rates. Fluctuation of currencies on international tourism, for our inbound market, for people visiting the country. With a stronger foreign currency elsewhere, South Africans will travel within the borders of their own. So if our country, our exchange rate is weaker, then we are bound to travel within our own country, because if the foreign currency is stronger than that of South Africa, that foreign currency is regarded as an expensive destination. For an outbound market, with a stronger South African rand, will be more likely to travel to foreign countries, and that will be affordable for us. So if we have a strong South African rand and we want to travel abroad, it means we can buy, using our rand, a lot of foreign currency, because the rand is stronger, and we will regard such international destination as cheaper opposed to our own. The influence on travel patterns. With a favorable rate of exchange, tourists are encouraged to travel. So when the rate of the exchange is cheaper and favorable, then people are encouraged to move and experience the world. Tourists from a rich country will travel to South Africa if the rand is weaker. They will receive more rand for their currency. They will perceive South Africa to be a cheap destination. They spend more money here, more and longer stays, and they will always want to visit South Africa. Now, this brings an end to our discussion. I just want us to have a look at the following activities that were extracted from the past papers, so that we test our calculation skills on foreign exchange. The instruction says, study the information and Forex table below and answer the questions that follow. South African University Choir has been invited to perform at an international music festival held in London, the United Kingdom. The members of the choir received 610 spending money. Here are the exchange rate. We are given two foreign currencies here, the United Kingdom and the United States of America. The scenario says the choir, the music festival choir, are visiting the UK, meaning that we'll be focusing on this column where the United Kingdom is, and we are going to disregard the United States of America because it's not in the question. So we have used an elimination skill here to eliminate that which we don't want, the United States of America. So it means we are going to work on only one row, which is the United Kingdom, and analyze our questions. 2.1, calculate the amount in pounds that each student received when they exchanged 610 Rand at the Exchange Bureau at the OR Tambo International Airport. Note, round off your answer to 2 decimal places. Show all calculations. Right. In this instance, South African choir members each receive 610 rand as given in the scenario. And this will be the money for their own spending. So in this instance, the bank is selling foreign notes to members of the choir and to the value of 610 against the British pound. So we are going to focus on the BSR, which is 2471. And the law of converting local currency to foreign currencies of the world allows us only to divide the local currency by the foreign currency. And we are going to say the 610 that each member was allocated as spending money, and we are going to use the divide symbol, mathematical symbol, and we are going to use the bank selling rate because the bank here sells the pounds to the members of the South African choir. So in using this bank selling rate, we are going to divide it by 24.17 rand, which is given on the table, and you will remain with 25 pounds. After the comma, you have 2378982. So we need to round off this figure. So it will be, as you focus on the third digit, which is a 7, it is above 5, and then it is translated to the nearest 10, and it becomes 10. You will take the 1 and add it up to the 3, and it becomes 24. So the correct answer here will be 25.24. So how is this marked at the marking center? Or how do we apply the memorandum, the marking memo, to this kind of an answer? They will give you 3 ticks for getting the answer correct. And these 3 ticks, as indicated here on the marking guide and here on the question, so is distributed as follows. There will be 1 mark for the symbol that you have correctly used the divide. There will be another mark for the using the correct exchange rate. Here the bank is selling the rand, and for the correct answer, local. Lastly, remember to round off these many figures. And this is how the calculation is done. Now, when they return to South Africa, one of the choir members exchanged 26.35 pounds at the Foreign Exchange Bureau at the OR Tambo International Airport. Calculate the amount in rand he received. Round off your answer to 2 decimal places. Show all steps of your calculations. We are going back here to the table. So he comes back home with a foreign currency, and at the Bureau Exchange at OR Tambo International Airport, you want to exchange his pound to the South African rand because he may not use the pound in the country. Right, here's the calculation. In this case, the bank is going to buy foreign currency from him and they will use a rate of 23.30, which is the exchange rate. And on the table, it is the bank buying rate. So this is the amount, or this is the rate that the bank uses to buy foreign currency. So, and when we convert foreign currency into South African rand, you would always use the multiplication symbol, and this 26.35 pounds multiplied by 23.30, which is the rate of exchange. And in this instance, it is the bank buying rate, because the bank buys foreign currency. It will amount to 6 rand 13 and 95 and 0.955 cents. So we don't have this kind of figure in cents, so we have to round it off to 2 decimal. So the third digit here, it's a 5. The nearest is to the nearest 10, would be a 6, and would move this one to here, and it gives us 6 rand 13.96. That's how we do it. Ladies and gentlemen, the grade 12 learners, this brings us to end of foreign exchange, and I hope you have enjoyed the lesson, and you'll do the best you can to pass a section where you'll be assessed on foreign exchange. Until the next lesson, have a wonderful time. Thank you.